so double behave. I do not believe we've been so many people in one room that early in the panel. So this is one more groundbreaking event for us, and that's exciting. What we'll do today is just do a very quick opening. Again, I want to say thank you for everybody that arranged this. Just for the few people that are not meeting here with us every couple of weeks on Wednesday night, I want to give you a quick overview of what GameIS is and what we're doing. And then we'll cover a few house rules by our producer, Naama, and then move to the panel. So what's the time? I think it's a perfect time to start and be formal. So again, thank you everybody for coming in today. 101 people in the room. That's something to record. Thank you for joining us. I'm Guy Ben-Dov. I'm the volunteering chairman of GameIS, the Digital Game Association in Israel. GameIS is a volunteering group and association that took upon itself more than a decade ago to connect the Israeli game ecosystem, which includes not only developers and game publishers, but also anybody that deals with the education aspect, the investment aspect, servicing and technologies into this marketplace. We are known for running a few platforms. The biggest one is the generic one on Facebook, but there's Jobs, the Jobs account. Our volunteering are dealing with anything from messaging to helping opportunities inside and outside of Israel, dealing with government. When COVID started, we understood that we will not be able to run for a while our physical events, and we moved everything online. Every 2 weeks on Wednesday night, we're gathering together. Every time it's a different topic, and this was and it still is managed by a wonderful group of people who are producing these events. Shir and Naama today are with us. And they're running a lot of the show. And today we have a super special event with super special speakers. Before we'll dive in, again, I want to thank you. I want to call you to join our Facebook page and our volunteering team, a few dozens of them already. There's always things to do, and there's always things to help our ecosystem. And with that, I'll pass to Naama for some house rules and moving on with the day. Enjoy.
So first of all, as Guy said, I'm sending now a link in chat for everyone who wants to join us in volunteering GameIS. We would love to have you. And I swear we're really nice people, so you should join. It's fun. I would please ask you guys to mute yourself in this session so we can hear the panel talks. And if you have any questions, you can write it in chat. In the end, we will have enough time for Q&A. So have fun. Dusty, you go.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Let me just start with a short presentation. Just a second. Can you see it okay?
Yes, it's good.
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Wow, I'm so excited. So first, thank you guys, and thank you Naama for all the work and all the support and for making this happen and for hosting us here. By us, I mean Games for Health Israel, a new community that we launched only 2 months ago. And we're very, very happy to have this first formal event with GameIS. And thank you everyone for taking the time to join us. I know, it's in Israel, it's already very late, so we really appreciate it. So my name is Dasi Mandel. I'm co-founder of this Games for Health community together with Jonathan Sagir, who will introduce himself as well in a second. And we're super excited to be here. And we're, sorry. Again, we want to thank everyone for joining us. And let's start. It will work. Yeah, it works. And thank you so much, Snir, Sharit, for all the amazing support and for the help with the amazing opening of this presentation. Just one request before I start. It would be great if all of you could share your contact details in the form. We put a link to a form in the chat so we can be in touch later on as well. So I would like to start by sharing my match 3. So my first match 3 is that I bring over 15 years of experience in the healthcare industry. During my first years in the industry, I focused on regulatory processes, FDA, design and management of clinical trials, quality systems of medical device and digital health companies. I also founded my own consulting firm, regulatory firm. And a few years ago, I decided to take all that knowledge and sort of shift to the more business side. And that's when I had the amazing opportunity to take healthcare companies from very early stages, or actually medical products or companies that seem to have actually failed, and practically put them back on track and take them to market sales and different types of licensing and acquisition deals. So that's just a bit, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm so excited. So the first, my first match is my health is my background in healthcare. My second one is my story, and it's since I remember myself, I have had a very intimate acquaintance with eating disorders from a very early age. And later on, throughout the years, I've been studying different types of psychotherapy methods, so to create coping tools for myself. And I hope that now also for others. My third match, I'd like to share that most of my life, and please no one take this personally, I believe video games are the most idiotic way a person can choose to waste his time. And only when I met my partner, my boyfriend, who is a hardcore gamer, and truth to be told, it was only when I understood that the existence of our relationship depends on my ability to develop some empathy for gamers, is when I decided to open up, watching, listening, reading, most important, playing, and I was amazed to discover this wonderful world. And I realized what many of you have known forever, that games can be about creating feelings of control, of competence. And my favorite is that they can be about fantasy, not in the sense of being Spider-Man, but rather in the sense of having a safe lab to test my feelings and choices. And games can also provide diversion, just a way to take my mind off concerns, and so much more. So it's truly a tool so strong it can change behavior. And I'm not sure exactly when, but at some point the pieces of the puzzle fell in place. And I decided to mix all three together and to develop a Games for Health product, set up a new company, and fast forward, here we are today. And along that path, I met Jonathan, my co-founder at Games for Health. Jonathan.
Thank you very much, Dasi. I'm like you, very, very excited to be here. I almost can't believe it's happening. My name is Jonathan Sagir. I'm the co-founder of this amazing community. I would also like to share my 3 matches. In the last decade, I had the privilege of opening, initiating, and operating 6 different businesses in the fields of hospitality and restaurants mostly. For me, 2020 was a game changer in many ways. And in the last year, all my businesses were forced to shut down. And I started asking myself, where do I want to go in life? And for no apparent reason, what came to my mind was a memory of my father dealing with his addiction problem. And I just dived in right away and started getting every information I could about it. And as I was doing that, a good friend that was already mentioned here, Sneer, gave me a virtual reality headset and put it on my head. And something happened that moment that I can't really explain, but everything clicked and the puzzle started to align for me. I decided right then and there to shift all my focus toward the virtual reality as a therapy to deal with addictions. I decided to go all in and I joined the startup MBA program in the Technion to help me to realize the idea to a company. And today, most of my focus is all about trying to harness all that is amazing about gaming and all that is missing on my part to make it a digital health product and serve a lifeline to people hiding in the shadows and coping with the sickness of addiction. After I came to the understanding that the key to my project will be to find a way to combine gaming and all that has digital health product need in order to come to life, I started exploring the necessary things to define a product. I started talking to everybody that would listen about my idea. One of them, I'm so happy about it, was Dasi. That I think in a short meeting, it was a 14-minute introduction. A week later, we met like personally, like before, and we clicked, and everything came to align, and we actually shared the same journey. We joined forces, and together we identified several topics and challenges that we believe are unique to the melting pot that the two industries must go through. During the last few months, we have been talking to a lot of people from both sides, and most share thoughts and about possibilities and the potential for innovation between colliding these two amazing worlds. Darcy, you can take it from here.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, everybody.
So, as you may have gathered from my personal story and also correlating to Jonathan's words, my feeling when thinking about healthcare and gaming is that worlds are colliding. And when worlds collide, you can choose to either run away from the challenges created or sort of choose to immerse yourself and embrace the change and the opportunities that it brings. And that's a bit what we're going to do here today. So we're just a bit about the agenda. We're first going to talk about the Games for Health community just for a few minutes, why we're here, what we're doing, and how you can join us. We're then going to have a super interesting, inspiring discussion with a panel of experts from both the healthcare and the gaming worlds. And they're going to talk about the challenges, possible solutions, the opportunities that this field brings. And I want to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of them, Asi, John, Eitan, Noah, Adi. You have all been an inspiration for the past couple of months. Thank you for being such great supporters, and thank you for your teaching and guidance. You're all really an inspiration for us, and we look forward to more collaborations. After the panel, we're going to quickly summarize, and at that point, we'll sort of formally conclude the meeting, but everyone is invited for for a following Q&A session after that, and we'll just have an open conversation. We'd love to hear your thoughts, ideas, how you'd like to join, take part, or how we can collaborate. So what do we want to achieve? As a community, we want to make sure that the power of digital games and gaming technologies are harnessed to overcome healthcare challenges. And I'm sure we all agree that the possibilities and scope of where gaming can take us are endless, with many intended uses, indications, and different applications. And despite the different challenges that we've seen, and I'm sure some of you have challenges that range from caregivers sometimes having negative perception, or game creators reluctant sometimes to work under regulatory requirements, or investors having concerns about the business model, we truly believe that gaming will be a big part of the healthcare landscape in the future. And things are already happening, and I promise that our expert panel will discuss in detail challenges, possibilities, and what's already going on. So we're here to do something great together, and we're here to make sure that the relevant ecosystem will be created that will allow games for health ventures to be realized as not only clinically effective, but also economically viable, revenue generating, sustainable businesses, and much more than that, all for the treatment of unmet medical needs. And I'm emphasizing this because we know that in the past, and sometimes still, Games for Health attracted mainly philanthropic or very small funding. And we want to see significant investments take place and startups grow to real actual businesses. And we're here as a community to serve as an enabler. We're here to create a strong base that will allow the growth of the Games for Health industry. Currently focused in Israel, we're starting here, and I think we're all aware of the power that we have here, but we're already looking overseas, and we already have some members from the US, the UK, and other places. And to do all this work, we understand that we need to collaborate and work together, medical experts, game creators, researchers, corporates, government, investors, and we have all of these here today joining us, and it's amazing to see all of you here today because we're actually doing exactly that. We're initiating this process, or at least we're giving it a boost. So thank you so much for joining us here today. We truly believe that there's great power here, and it's an amazing step that we're taking forward. So how are we really going to make this happen? How are we sort of really going to create this world or create this ecosystem? So the first thing, and we're already active, is we're sharing knowledge and information. So we're going to have monthly meetings, workshops. We're all over social media, starting only recently, and we'll give you all the details in a minute, and we'd love for you to join. We're also building, so we do have a lot of knowledge and information already within our community members, but we're also creating more knowledge and more data. And we're doing that with amazing task forces already created and working in the community. So one of the task forces led by Tali, for example, is focused on ecosystem mapping, because there are so many examples out there, successful or not, that's a debate, but we can definitely learn from all of them. And we're planning interviews and surveys with stakeholders like caregivers, so to better understand their view. And we have a team studying, researching reimbursement and regulatory landscapes, really hoping to create a group that has influence in the not far future. And these are only some of the activities. And while we're doing these activities, we're already implementing. So we're starting a series of game jams for health. So like hackathons, where each time a different healthcare challenge will be presented and games will be developed to tackle that. And together, for example, with Road 2 and potentially other healthcare corporates and organizations. And we have several discussions with government organizations already, and pharmaceutical companies and game design schools and so on. And I'm sure Eitan will share some more about Road 2. But our goal is to provide or to create an accelerator or a hub, a place for creation, for creativity and creation, with the relevant facilities and mentorship that will be focused on games for health. So we're super excited about all that. And we're already talking to different sources about possible early stage funding for games for health, because we have in our community many members that are at the initial stages of their project. And all this and more we're doing in order to see real businesses created. Super important for us to go to the next level. So join us. We're really happy that you joined us today, and we would love you to join us for future activities as well. Take part. You can be active as much as you want. You can lead a task force. You can share your knowledge. your knowledge in lectures or on our Facebook page, or you can just follow us and let us know what you think and let us know your ideas. And we're out there. We are only starting, so we initiated this whole community only 2 months ago, but we're working rather quickly. So we have a WhatsApp group, and Jonathan, if you can put all the links in the chat, so everyone can join us.
It's already there. Everybody can see it.
Cool. Thank you. So we have a WhatsApp group, and that's intended mainly for notifications and reminders. Not too many discussions. We're trying to keep it quiet. We have our LinkedIn page, which is rather new, and we're going to use to notify of the events and share with everyone interesting information, knowledge, activities, events created by the members of our community. And we have a new Facebook group that we opened only last night. I will say that we had some discussions whether it's the right place, and we decided that for now it is. It seems to be the best platform where we can collect all the information, all the events, where we can have real discussions, where we can hopefully create some magic play games together, discuss them and think how we can help each other and grow. And we're already on Clubhouse as well, again, with Snir and myself. We did one event, which was very cool. And we're planning the series of Clubhouse talks every month or so. So please follow us. We will notify of all these events on our Facebook page. So if you choose only one of these social media outlets, I think the best place would be to join us is on Facebook and have a look every once in a while and see what's going on. So we hope to see you there. And of course, you can always just contact us directly by email or any other method. So let's go to the most interesting part of the evening, our games changing health expert panel. And I know that many of you came to hear the amazing members that we have today. And what I'll do, I'll introduce our moderator, although I can talk forever about each and every member of our panel, but I will let him take the lead from there. So our moderator, Asi Burak, I'm sure many of you know him, the chairman of the influential nonprofit organization Games for Change. He currently also has a commercial hat, a senior VP business development at Tilting Point, a mobile game publisher. When I took my first steps in the gaming industry, which was not long ago, Asi's name came up in almost every conversation. And people were a bit hesitating whether to make the introduction until the very kind Nir Miretsky sent an intro email and wrote, Asi Dasi, that's a cool rhyme, you guys should talk. And since Asi, we've been learning from Asi so much, and every conversation with you, Asi, really inspired us. And I think that you remember the first time that I sent you an email saying, I want to do the Games for Health community. And I think you said, go for it, just have a logo or something like that. So it's that simple. And just a few more things that you should know about Asi, and I'll transfer the stage to him. So already in 2011, Asi was named one of the Digital 25 leaders in emerging entertainment by the Producers Guild of America and the Variety magazine for his work on Games for Impact. And he has served as an executive advisor to organizations like the Tribeca Film Festival, Newsweek, and many others. In the early, I can go on and on, but it's a long list. In the early 2000s, Asi co-founded and led Impact Games, which were the creators of Peacemaker and Play the News. I'm sure many of you heard about it and maybe even played. And that was acquired by Hybrid Learning Systems in 2010. He is often interviewed by media, has been invited to speak in conferences and institutions, including TED Talks, Harvard Kennedy School, Clinton Global Initiative, and many others. So we're just honored, Asi, to have you here today. I hope you're not going to be mad at me after all this introduction.
Yeah, that was a robust one. Thank you so much. Very kind of you. And I want to jump right into the panel, and we have great speakers. They're going to introduce themselves, but I want to start really with a round that each one of you, Noah, John, Adi, Eitan, will basically introduce himself, herself, and let's do it a couple of minutes. Who you are, how you connected, and what Games for Health as a concept tells you. We'll start with maybe with Noah.
Sure. Hi. Okay. Well, let's see. I think. Well, first of all, I guess I'm sort of here to balance off Dasi's beginning, in that I've been a gamer pretty much all my life, and that's how I got into the Games for Health side of things. With health coming later, I spent it's now over 40 years in the games industry, and started in standard games, entertainment games, I guess is the best way to put it. Been a freelancer for many years. Worked for Google as their chief game designer for 4 years, and then 4 years ago came back to freelancing primarily to work in this Games for Health area. And in the course of that, I've worked on a huge range of projects. I can't even count. It's probably in the dozens as far as Games for Health goes, and in the hundreds for games in general. But what really fascinates me about this is that I think the Games for Health subsector is very similar to what I experienced the whole games industry to be 40 years ago, and both in the potential for growth and the excitement and the ability of people and the interest in people in sharing with each other. And also, I just think that it's a wonderful and exciting area to be able to do something that is not only fun and entertaining, but is having really strong and measurable impact on the quality of people's lives in many different ways. And I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Yeah, and Noah, I just want to point that you probably, I'm in this field for a long time, but I think you probably was there before I even joined. And from the very first, conferences of serious games, and in the US, when it was even in the US, just a concept and emerging, right?
Yeah. In fact, I would remember very specifically when I first met you and heard about the, a force more powerful and some of the other work you were doing. And just I was so excited because there were so few people doing it. Probably the first high-profile Games for Health thing I did was back in. I started doing it actually a couple days before the 9/11 event, so it goes back to 2001, and a company called Hope Lab that did a game called Remission that has been helping teenagers with cancer, with leukemia, stick to their chemotherapy treatment regimens, and had a peer-reviewed study in the journal Pediatrics. So it's nice to know that this actually does go back, 20 years and more, even farther, for just talking about serious games.
It's a lot of depth and a lot of good work that we can build on. I want to move to John. John, same idea. Please introduce yourself. You have again, a very impressive resume. By the way, Dasi and Jonathan, kudos to gather such respected great speakers. So John, please introduce yourself, but also, again, the Games for Health angle and what it means for you in your career and personal experience.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you, Asi. Thank you, Jonathan, my new friends on this wonderful playground. I'm John Drozd. I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm a national healthcare psychologist in the US. I've been playing games since I was 4 and climbing on a stool to play pinball. I stopped seeing doctors when I was 12 after the doctor told my mother he's got to stop playing those games. So that was it for me with doctors.
Until when? Until which age?
What's that? I still don't see doctors, Asi. I prefer gamers.
Okay.
I tell the doctors, I said, we don't stop playing because we get sick. We get sick because we stop playing.
Yeah.
And that's what really brought me to Games for Health. because for me, it really is abundant opportunity to play and create innovations for humanity in the things that are making people sick in our modern era. So I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John. Adi, the female on the panel, please, introduction and again, your personal view on this.
Hi, everyone. I'm very excited to be here. I'm actually a bit ashamed to say that I'm not coming from the games world. At this panel, I would be, I think, the health provider perspective, since I'm head of behavioral science at the Clalit Innovation Center. Clalit is one of 4 HMOs in Israel, and considered the largest. As my former position, I was head of data science, and I became to realize that the more we implement AI-driven algorithms to the field, there's a huge difference between what we aim to recommend and what eventually the actions are. And I began to realize that there's a place for behavioral principles to be combined with when we implement the decision support tools to the field. I had the privilege to work with Professor Dan Ariely, and I revealed and he exposed me to the world of behavioral economics. And since I'm a PhD candidate at the Technion, my work focuses on combining AI-driven algorithms with behavioral principles, with the aim to make a change in health outcomes and making the healthy choice the easier one to take.
Great. And finally, so we had basically the game maker perspective. With Noah, we had the practitioner perspective, the health provider, and now we'll talk with the funder investor, Eitan. I think you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, cool. So I'll try not to make myself too serious on this call. I kind of wrote a quick intro as to what Road 2 is, and a link to our website on the chat, so for everyone to see later on to help out. So first, I'd like to talk a little bit about Road 2. We are a unique private-public partnership. It's a private company in Israel owned by NVIDIA and a small investment group in Haifa, based in the north of Israel. And we are also funded by the Israeli it used to be called the Chief Scientist, today the Israeli Innovation Authority. And the purpose of all this is to bring a convergence of as many technologies as possible. So in the gaming issue and the games, the serious games issues is something fairly new to us. We were more focused on the classical digital health, Industry 4, and energy and environment aspects of things, but realized also due to my own past experience in various pharma and medical device companies such as Johnson & Johnson and Luminous and Kamada and Polypid and others, that the idea behind games and health and converging these verticals together is something really, really cool, and it's just something we really want to do. And we're putting our money where our mouths are, and we've collaborated with a really great a college called Tiltan, also located in Haifa. I believe that Ophir, who is heading the program from the Tiltan side, is also on the call here today. So feel free to reach out to him as well, and to Keren, who is the program manager from the Road 2 side. And basically what we're trying to do is create a program lasting a few months where we actually fund ideas that are pitched to us, and we fund them for a certain period of time to see that they reach a certain POC or MVP, to see that they're mature enough for us to kind of take them over to the publisher side, either to the publisher, the classic publisher that people are familiar with in the games industry, or if we look at the new type of publisher which we're trying to create, it's more the pharma companies And in this respect, we have collaborations with hospitals such as the Rambam Hospital and various other hospitals in Israel and the US, together with pharma companies such as AstraZeneca and others that are also have expressed interest in looking at what we're doing, and potentially if there's something interesting that coming out of there, to collaborate in a more in a deeper fashion. AstraZeneca is a great example. So is Canada, where I used to be the vice president of business development. Everything that's got to do with, for example, patients that have chronic illnesses, CF as an example, that require rigid schedules. The gaming aspect of it can make life so much easier and so much more fun, and so less of a regiment of living. So if we can jointly think of ideas in order to create these patients' lives a little more interesting, I think we'll be doing a great service to everyone, and at the same time also creating cool technologies and business opportunities for everyone. So we're here and we're excited to be here, and I think that there's a lot for everyone around the table to offer.
Thank you, Eitan. So look, we'll try to do it freestyle in terms of which one of you want to jump on the question. If it's going to be a Zoom apocalypse, then we'll figure out a different way to do it, maybe raising hands. But I want to start with the first question for all of you. I can say from my personal perspective that as much as it's exciting and it's amazing to see a new community starting in Israel, I can tell you that from my experience, making games for health or making in general games for impact is one of the toughest thing you can take upon yourself, because making games is difficult to begin with. Making a game that is very engaging and you know, just feels that aspect is already a challenge. And then when you add on top of it impact component that many times need, you know, the people that are behind the project will like to measure it, to quantify the impact that you're making. This is a whole different challenge. And on top of it is also the languages, the idea that, you know, even on this panel, there are people that speak different languages, not in terms of English, Hebrew, but in terms of the language of the health provider, to understand the language of the game maker, to understand what the funder cares about. So that's my view on it, that it's really full of challenges, and would love to hear you guys in terms of your perspective, what you've seen, and almost like tips that you can give to this young emerging platform, and what challenges to focus on.
So I would start. I feel like I have something to say. I very much want to relate to what you said, and I think games have can serve as an important tool to health services and health providers. So one of the hardest things to do is in Israel in particular, the health system is unique. It's not only the health insurer, but also the health provider. So games should make an impact in both hats. And the impact, the development of the game should always focus on the impact of making a change in the health outcomes. So in one way, monetary success it's important, but it shouldn't be a leading role, shouldn't play a leading role in the essence, I think. And another thing would be to keep the data private. There is a need to focus on the privacy issues in a way that will ensure that it won't expose your personal information to the public eye. There's a need to develop through the game or as an indirect from the game, good breaks and balances, I think, mechanisms during the whole process.
Thank you, Adi.
I'd like to quickly just jump in, and I was smiling as you were saying that, Asi, because I give that same talk about how hard it is to make entertaining games and how hard it is to treat things or train doctors, all the other things that we do. Doing both of those at the same time in the same title, that's part of what drew me to this. It was sort of the next level of challenge, kind of as we're leveling up as game developers. And I've been trying to bring more people from the entertainment industry in, but it can be daunting, I think, just because of some of these challenges.
Yes. John, Eitan, if you want to comment as well.
Yeah, I would suggest, beginning with observation of what's happening physiologically in gameplay, right? Take the most popular games and measure, the physiology of gamers in process. And I think we're going to learn more from looking at the joy people are experiencing, playing Animal Crossing. We'll learn so much more about health than the reverse. So I would say let's study what we know is already working within the field.
Cool. If it's okay, I wanted to move to talk about the impact. Again, this is there are obviously a lot of facets to it, but I want to focus on what we're hoping to achieve with the game, and from everything I've seen at Games for Change and people making games in the field, the impact objectives or the aspiration can wear very different flavors or disciplines. So, for example, there are games that I've seen that go to the thing that is most obvious in health, which is behavior change. The idea that we want to use a game or create a game that facilitates that behavior change with a patient. At the same time, we have games that are about training. Noah mentioned it. Maybe we're training a surgeon to do a better job, right? Maybe we have games that are about, just like I don't know if everyone here knows the example, but Fold It and other citizen science games are games that have a completely different impact objective, and they're focusing on the collaboration and brain power of a lot of people in different places coming together to solve a medical problem, almost like helping, doing it better than even a supercomputer. And then we have games that are, I think John mentioned it, what happens in your brain, right? Cognitive science games, that it's not even about you learning or you're getting aware, you're basically actually going through a change in your cognition and brain functions that is similar to what will happen if you take a pill, like medicine. So I wanted to get from you guys on the panel maybe one very inspiring or groundbreaking example that you remember that will illustrate one of those impact areas that you want to kind of highlight from your career, from games you made or games you experienced or so.
Let me throw in one other emerging category of games as diagnosis tools. That there's some interesting research showing that just by observing how people's use of a keyboard or a mouse changes over time, you may detect neurodegenerative diseases years before other measures do that. But specifically, the game I've been most directly involved with on the treatment side has been what has grown into Kili Interactive and the game that was just approved last year by the FDA to treat pediatric ADHD. And what I love about that is that it is a treatment. It is, in fact, in the testing, they've had results that have been similar to the efficacy of drugs like Adderall or Ritalin, but in terms of treating ADHD, but that the side effects that they've noted, the two most frequently noted ones were occasional headaches or frustration. And I love the fact that it's such a light amount of side effects for having such a powerful effect on things. And I'm really looking forward to seeing future approvals of so many different types of disorders that I think can effectively be treated by games that we're just starting to scratch the surface.
No, I would agree completely with that. And I would propose, even as an initial study, if we took a pharma protocol and we applied it to gameplay, and Asi to sort of share a story. Within the last 2 years, I do a lot. I'm the chair of the Warrior Gamers Mental Health Committee, and we bring active duty and veterans and young people together in gaming, recreational gaming, to promote health and social emotional well-being. So I had a young person. He was the son of a Vietnam special operator. He was profoundly depressed. He had severe treatment-resistant depression, profound suicidality, and he had exhausted the mental health system in our country. And so I was meeting with him, and it occurred to me to ask, tell me remember how you used to play. And he told me about the joys of his childhood, sort of playing games on the PlayStation. And so I said, well, why don't we do that? Let's get you a system and let's start playing. And in order to play effectively, your body has to shift from a state of fight or flight survival into a state of relaxed engagement. And it, from my perception, it was the game that really saved his life, gave him reasons for living. He's now actively engaged in streaming online. So that's one example in terms of the power of play, specifically related to, suicide prevention, and again, giving people reasons to live through community connections.
Yeah, amazing. This is also, I think, your second comment that says it's not only about creating new games, it's also about understanding the existing games that are working in even entertainment, but connect them to this way of thinking and learn from them, and bring them into the Games for Health discipline. Adi?
Yes, I think part of I think what was interesting to me is that the health systems are changing, and from a mission of saving lives now to proactive care. Systems, especially in Israel, I see that I know of, the health systems are now trying to keep the people healthy, and in case of an illness, keep them stable as long as they can. So I think it's a sweet spot for games to play a leading role here, from the patient's perspective to change the behavior from encourage to adherence to medications, or encourage physical activity, but also from the, as Nos said before, from the health providers or the doctors. It can train the new generation of doctors. It can help with identify people's at risk, or even diagnosis faster. So for me, a game can encourage patients to healthier behavior and actions. And not only that, also empower the patient and help integrate the patient's support system to the game and to him by that.
I will get back to you in a minute on the Israeli perspective. Eitan, any gaming, gamification, game-related? Yeah,
I think it's a great question. I would like, instead of giving examples, I'll just give basically the three building blocks as to what I think makes the great bridge between games and let's call it the medical world. I think I mentioned the first. She said adherence. I was looking at the word compliance with regimen. So that's compliance. If anything that we can have using games to increase compliance, that is something that leads to the second word that I would like to put in, which is reimbursement. And reimbursement, if we can actually get a game to get reimbursed by companies such as Adi represents and others, we have the amazing combination between things that are actually good for you, and you can actually create a revenue stream from. And it's interesting both from the pharma perspective, both from the healthcare perspective, and obviously from the gamer's perspective, the patient and the developer. So that's the second one. And the third one, which I would like people to think of, are platforms for rehabilitation, for example. So as you talked about behavioral change, rehabilitation is classic on this. And there are plenty of, let's call them platforms. Anything I've seen lots of platforms such as, remember those Michael Jackson lighting up, floors lighting up when you jump on them and that kind of stuff. So there's a lot more, there's cooler stuff out there today. That was way back in the 80s, right? That are over there and actually paint a kind of stepping stones on the floor. We have to jump from stepping stone to stepping stone. And if you miss, you fall down. If you don't, you succeed. And lo and behold, for patients that are in need of rehab in that type of environment, they get their own personalized approach at home. I've seen these types of approaches, which are super interesting, and also put the patients not only in their clinical perspective with their rehab specialists, but they can also re-practice this in the home. And this is, from my perspective, is very, very interesting to look at, because it basically combines home care, healthcare, basically everything that we talked about. So those are the three cents that I would like to put into that.
Okay, great. Thank you for that, Eitan. Forgive me, Noah and John, for this one. This is for the Israeli members of the panel. I told you, Adi, that we'll get back to it. I'm interested, we talked about challenges, and I wanted to see if in your opinion, there's anything that is specific to Israel. I mean,
Zivan, if you could put yourself on mute, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So basically the question is there anything from what we discussed that or around it that is specific to Israel in terms of the challenges or the opportunities that you think would be different than other industries? I mean, it's okay if the answer is we're the same, but if there is a difference or something unique, would love to hear about it.
So I think probably the biggest challenge would be to step in. It's hard in Israel, especially. There are many regulations, and it's not an easy task to step in and to make a pilot even. And even if you do that, it would be, and I hope it would change, but it would probably be less in a clinical perspective issues, but in a supportive way, or through I didn't see any examples here about gaming that are considered focusing on chronic conditions or other clinical conditions. And I think the challenge would be not only to step in, but to make an impact to those patients.
Right. Eitan, from your perspective, anything that are Israeli unique?
Honestly, no. Obviously, I agree with Adi that every country has their own healthcare system and they have their own nuances. But in the end of the day, every healthcare system that I was involved in, and I dealt a lot with the US one and some of the healthcare systems in Europe, they're all battling with the same thing. The population is either getting older or needs more treatments. There's the same number of doctors out there, and they're becoming more and more overworked, and a lot of the stuff needs to go back home. Now, if the treatments aren't fun at home, you won't do them.
Yeah.
And here is, and I see John kind of nodding his head in agreement. If we can make these treatments fun, if we can make them a game more than anything. So if we can actually prescribe a game to someone and saying, okay, you know, you have to eat your cake, otherwise I won't give you your vegetables. And create it in such a way where people actually want to do this. We're paving the way to healthier lives globally, and I think this is something which is not Israel centric. It's global.
Yeah, I just want to close the loop on the reimbursement with Noah about FDA approval. So, does it mean when Akili and Adam Gazeli with this project and that you were also part of, when it got the FDA approval, which was a huge milestone for the industry, the first game that can be given by doctors, how it's related to reimbursement? Is it a whole different process? Is it combined? How does it work?
Yeah, well, I can't go into too much detail on that, you know, partly for NDA and partly just because even though this happened, the FDA approval came in, I believe, last July. It caught Akili a bit by surprise. There's by design absolutely no communication about when that or even if that will happen, and they were in the midst of dealing with, you know, the whole coronavirus thing and having to scale back up again to deal with it. So they do have doctors who have now been prescribing this treatment. And you know, just some of the public information is that it is I think a 5-week treatment, and it costs about $450, I think, in you know, US dollars, which is similar to what a lot of the pharmaceutical treatments for similar things cost. And it's all news to me. I mean, obviously coming from the game side, I really didn't know much about the health business side of it all, but my understanding is that it's a bit of a chicken and egg thing, and you actually have to get out there and prove that there's a demand for a medical product before the big insurance companies and you know, other payers will put money up for it, or if it's a country that isn't quite as backward as the US, that before the government will decide that it's worth reimbursing. So they're on the path for that. One of the reasons that they went for pediatric ADHD as a first thing to look at, because there were several other potential treatments and ages that they could have worked at, is because there is a significant financial demand there. And I really think, you know, now I'm speaking not as an official Akili advisor, but just on my own here, that we're going to see this change fairly rapidly. Partly because of the global landscape. I don't know which country or even which region in a country will be the first ones to start offering reimbursement, but there are so many countries that are interested in this. And in fact, the whole pandemic has pushed the need for scalable digital remote healthcare so much that I'm very confident there will be ways that people will be reimbursed. And one final thing that I thought was interesting that was a difficult thing is that when you get a game that is now classified on a similar level to heavy duty pharmaceutical drugs, there's a responsibility that comes with that. And in the games industry, of course, we're used to handing out, you know, test versions of our game and trying it, you know, freely among people. If the game is reputed to be as powerful as a drug, then the question is this tantamount to a pharmaceutical company saying, well, we're not really sure if this works yet. Why don't you take a pill and try it? And it's a really interesting question. There's a lot that needs to be done about that. That's all I'll say on it for now.
Someone on the chat that I saw just moments ago mentioned that if they think that in Israel, for whatever reason, the reimbursement will be easier. Maybe because some openness to innovation or a smaller system. What do you think, Adi?
Yeah, I saw this comment as well, and I agree. I actually agree because now I can't believe that I'm mentioning the corona, but
we said, by the way, that the first person that mentions the corona, we need to close the whole thing.
I'm not saying that, I'm not saying the word again. Though I wanted to say that something has changed. We can see that even the Ministry of Health is more open for innovative solutions, and with a proof of concept, or at least a quick and dirty evidence-based impact potential. It might be easier in Israel from some perspective, I think.
Got it. Eitan, from your investment perspective, I'm curious how much those things play. I mean, I'm sure that they play a huge role in your decisions, but how do you look at this timeline in, improvement from the government, evidence-based product, just a concept? I mean, how do you look at that funnel, and when do you feel comfortable to come in?
Oof, that's a difficult question. It's a great one. And the answer is that there's not a clear formula. It all depends. It's all very specific to the case. But if I'm trying to kind of sum things up and kind of put them in coherent buckets, I think there are two ways of looking at it. If there's something more on, let's call it the training side, together with pharma to work on the compliance of medication, it's not an easy feat to persuade pharma to join in and to chip in. But that's once we go to the pharma side and have a pharma play with a pharma player, I think they are more easily ready to be convinced and to put in money because they basically want to see that their long-term enrollment of their drug or whatever the treatment is doing better, and then they believe that later on they will go to the FDA and get some benefit.
Right.
If on the other hand we're talking on rehabilitation, for example. So it's actually, it could be the opposite. There could be a lot of, how can I say, backlash from actual physiotherapists saying, okay, you're taking away some of my job, which is not the case, obviously, but there's a lot of education to go through in order to do that. So that can also lead to some kind of backlashes. Now, if we're talking about reimbursement and we see already that the FDA has approved reimbursement for, let's say, just online compliance reviews by physicians, so the physicians will be pushing their patients to be more aware of this, and they will do that using games. So all three answers are kind of are there. It all depends on where you want to be. So it's very difficult to answer specifically, but I hope it gives at least some clarification as to the thought process behind what we need to look at.
Sure, thank you for that. Now for something completely different, I'm totally breaking the thread, and I want to go back to John and discuss esports, because esports, I mean, look, esports is with us maybe as long as we talk, and even before serious games. But obviously, esports mainstream and kind of coming out of the closet is a bit more of this last decade phenomena, and it puts games in a very different place. The whole idea that they're social in the physical world, in the virtual world. The idea that they become this, compared or equated to a sports experience. I'm sure that it has unique aspects that we didn't see before. And I understand that you are also doing some work, so would love to hear more.
Yeah, so I say, Asi, right, gaming and esport plants the roots, the childhood roots of adult happiness. And happiness then is associated with that long-term well-being. Let me tell you what I mean, right? So as a young person gets involved in healthy recreational gaming, first they're brought into the gaming world for the joy of play. Then from play, they decide that they want to get good at something. So they commit to a practice schedule. From their commitment to the practice schedule, they learn grit and resiliency. And there was one study published that says, gamers bounce back from failure more quickly. And they're much more able to learn sort of in process. And then from that gaming, we have the opportunity to get better in relation to other people, right? So if you and I play and you beat me in game, then I can have gratitude for you as my teacher because you've put the light on where and how I can get better and healthier.
Right.
Some of the happiest people that I've known in life are former competitors, they're former athletes. And so gaming and esports is essentially the extension of Olympic play. Many will never go on don't want to go on to play esports professionally. But the joy they get from the gaming, the health that they get from the social connectedness and the celebration will benefit them from a health and wellness perspective. And that's why I'm so happy, Warrior Gamers partnered with the Rugby Foundation in the US.
Mhm.
We're offering combine events where you have rugby competition, and then right across the way, you've got the gaming competition. So it really integrates the best of both. And
The
through
gaming
that,
competition, by the way, is rugby or something else?
well, they're playing rugby,
Okay.
and then right across the way, they're playing Rocket League.
Rocket League, right. That's because what I've seen in esports is that you have those cases where a soccer club will buy a FIFA player, will make it, but then I've seen cases that they understand that it's something else, something new, which can then have its own game, doesn't necessarily needs to be the virtual representation of the sport.
Right, exactly right. In terms of that sort of that integration, and in that we're able to, for both, promote lifestyle medicine factors, right? The importance of nutrition and exercise and time in nature and service to others and healthy sleep and good relationships and mindfulness and of course fun as a way of promoting health through the lifespan. So very excited about the opportunities for recreational leagues,
Yep.
as feeders for both amateur and professional esports development.
Great. So talking about professionals, this is kind of the last part of the panel, and I want to maybe focus each one of you on their own work. We start with John with the esports perspective. Noah, if possible, I would love to get from you. We talked about professionals. Let's talk about professional game makers. I'm sure that in the audience we have a lot of from all over the world, but many from Israel. People that have their own studios. They're asking themselves, where do I begin? Well, what's the right way to go about it? So, any tips, any advice? Being there from the beginning, that you can kind of look back and look forward, that you can share would be great.
Yeah, well, in some ways, my long experience means that I'm one of the least qualified to talk about getting into the industry because in 1980, when I got my first job, things were radically different than they are now. But that said, as I alluded to before, I think this whole games for health side of things is much more like that, where just having an interest in games for health is enough to qualify you in many cases to be more attractive to a company to hire you. That there are very few people in the games industry that have made this leap so far, and I've been saying come on in, the water's fine. But I would say there's a couple of things I could say very quickly. One of them is that something that has been true for all 40 years that I've been in this industry, and I'm sure will be true for a long time in the future, that the single most in-demand skill is good programming skills and being able to be good with computers. And despite all of the tools that have come up over the years to create apps or software without being a coder yourself, if you're really good at that, that's going to open a lot of doors and often get you a better salary as well. But the other side of it is that I have a lot of people who tell me, well, I sent out, my CV to 3 different companies and they all said no. So I figured there just was no interest. And I said, 3, are you kidding me? What I found is that there are people who I see have great talent, but no persistence, who just give up almost instantly. Other people who are really persistent, in some cases who aren't very talented, who almost uniformly succeed. It may take them 20, 30, even 100 different tries, but they keep going and eventually they get a foothold and work their way up from there. So persistence, it's grit, as John said, it's not necessarily the most glamorous thing to have, but it is, I think, in many ways the most effective.
Yeah, and you're saying it's a game of numbers. You need to try many opportunities until you get the right one. I want to go to Adi. My intel tells me that your PhD research project is somehow related. Can you tell us more and how it connects to this discussion?
Yeah, I think in one word, personalization. I think we shouldn't focus in our work on the average person in mind. We should think of personalize the service, personalize the goals, the way to achieve them, if the unique profile of the patient would be considered. I think that's a really safe way to say that the impact.
What was the headline of the thesis? I mean, what was the framework for everyone to?
Making the healthier choice the easier one to take. I think combining AI and machine learning algorithms with behavioral principles.
Okay, cool. And was gaming? I mean, obviously it's super connected, but was gaming part of the work itself, or it's something that you're now thinking?
Actually, it's not. It became one since I met Darcy, and amazingly, in 2 months, much has changed. I became familiar with examples from the world and actually some examples even in Israel. Not yet connected. Hopefully, next time you ask me this question, I'll have a different answer.
Sounds good. And Eitan, I wanted to maybe finish this round with you in terms of, again, personal work. You spoke about, in your introduction, you spoke about Road 2, the fund. I know it's early. This is just a newborn baby, Games for Health in Israel, but what ways you kind of could work together, even if it's too early and might be a more futuristic direction? How do you see Road 2 and Games for Health, in terms of synergy and feeding each other or helping each other?
Okay, so I apologize. The answer here is going to be slightly long because you have to understand so usually, the way funds work, they kind of seek out investments, and it's usually kind of a tug and war between the fund and the investors, okay, and the entrepreneurs, where the fund tries to kind of push the value down as much as possible to make a bigger investment or a bigger bang for its investment. We work the opposite way. Basically, what we try to do is first create a consortium of interested companies. So I mentioned a couple of names. There are other names in different areas. We didn't talk about for example, training games and the things on that level. I think that's not the forum here. But the idea is, if we could create a consortium of companies that have similar interests, each one in their own particular medical realm, then we can go out and ask for challenges to forums such as this forum, saying, you know what, guys, how can, just as an example, how can we increase compliance for patients suffering from this and this and this chronic disease? And we gather around the pitches, we jointly pitch them to our potential partners, and that's how we create the synergy. So
and this is, we work kind of differently on this, and we treat all of this activity as a kind of active due diligence, so to speak, to see how the entrepreneur can interact with a heavy set pharma or medical device company that needs to work very, very square and orderly fashion, which is like the absolute opposite to the creative mayhem coming out of the gamer world. And that's why we look at it, we help out and we try to look at how these worlds don't collide, how they combine. And if we see a good team, and basically we see, okay, if there's a good team, we have a good infrastructure, then we'll put in our money. But the idea is not only our money, we are a relatively small fund. The idea is that if we put in our money, we're kind of a catalyzer for the pharma company, for the medical device company to be excited enough to join in, and then the ball gets rolling. I think that's, sorry for being a little lengthy on this, but the process needs to be clear.
Sorry, it's super important. I think that you'll probably get a lot of requests for business cards and from the community, but that's what we want to do here, right? So I think, Dasi, that first of all, thank you, the four of you, very much. Eitan, Adi, Noah, and John. You're not released yet from the duty because we're going to probably take some questions from the audience. But I do want to bring in Dasi because I think that you want to do kind of a quick break, housekeeping, before we open it and have questions from other participants, right?
Yes, thank you so much for this, Asi, Eitan, Adi, John, Noah. It was super interesting as always. I kept quiet this time. It was not easy for me. I would like to refer to a couple of notes that were raised, and then we'll go on to our Q&A with the audience. I know that there are challenges, right? There's the reimbursement, and there's the regulatory, and there's the clinical application and the clinical data. No one's saying that it's simple. But I think it was Jonathan who mentioned in our prep meeting that several years ago, I don't know how long ago, alternative medicine was not reimbursed. And let's also remember that only a year or two ago, the FDA did not yet clear for marketing digital applications that provide cognitive behavioral therapy. And now they are approving it, and not only approving, it's also being reimbursed. So things are changing, whether or not related to COVID. And we think that we want to be there when they actually happen. And if we need to, we also want to open up the path. And one of the questions that were raised in the chat was about the ability to do some B2C models, even without the regulatory clearance and the reimbursement. Ayal, I think it was you asking the question. And I want to say that when we think about games for health, we need to be creative in our approach. And we need to remember that there are products out there today who were first sold to consumers with soft claims without regulatory clearance. And then these companies use the data that they collected on the market in order to go to the FDA and get the clearance and the reimbursement and so on. So sometimes we have to be disruptors. I'm not saying that it's easy. I'm not saying that it's the best bet for an investor, but I think it can be a good one if we develop the right product. So thank you so much for all the information that you've provided, and it's super inspiring. And I think that we can, first of all, I know that it's a bit late, so just one administrative request. Everyone would be super happy if you join us on our Facebook or WhatsApp or LinkedIn, so we can connect and share information and start playing together and go on and create together. Jonathan put all the links in in the chat, and we can put them again, and you can just search for Games for Health Israel on whatever platform. And I think we can go back to the Q&A. There were some interesting questions raised here in the chat. Asi, do you want to?
Yeah, so I'll try to pick. Don't please be gentle with me. There's no bias. It's really random. Look, I think that maybe we'll continue with the B2C for a second. I think maybe the panelists would like to comment on this. I know there is a lot of work done in Games for Health that is B2B, that you work directly with health providers, with basically the organizations that are going to distribute the work, the games, or the apps to their patients. But obviously, we've seen examples that are B2C, that basically someone puts a game on a consumer-based platform, and the impact is there. There is something in reaching out a large number of consumers and maybe bypassing, in that case, the whole system, and they're working directly with the consumer. So I would love to hear your thoughts and maybe examples or how it's different from what we were talking about until now.
I'll jump in quickly on that. Dasi actually mentioned one of the things that I see all the time with a range of different clients, which is that there's the sort of the wellness track, which is that if you don't make strong claims about how effective or safe something is, then you're able to just put out recommendations and say you have to be careful about how you do that. That can be very inexpensive, and you can reach consumers directly. In a lot of cases, it depends on the nature of the kind of treatment that you have. If this is something that will work fine with a cell phone or a tablet, or with just minimal other technology, then that's great. Some of the companies I work with are working in VR, which is very promising, but the number of people with VR headsets at home is pretty tiny still by comparison, certainly to phones or even to computers, of course. And that means that you need to be cautious about how you do it. And the final thing about this, should you go with some sort of wellness approach or a FDA or CE mark kind of approval, a lot of it comes down to money, because it's extremely expensive to do the large scale, hundreds of people tests, even more expensive to do those tests, then have to wait a few years and pay your team for all that time before they have a chance to get reimbursement or put it out there. So many times the choice of whether you go directly to consumers or do a B2B is dictated by the nature of the type of technology you're using and the medical condition that you're treating.
Asi, may I say just one thing, please?
Of course.
So I would like to add to what Noah said and what I said before. Even if we do go B2C, we have to do it wisely, and we have to remember that it's going to be a stepwise process. And it's super important to talk to the FDA at the beginning of the process and understand what type and what scope of data they would like to see when we get to the actual claim, the claim that is medical and not wellness. So when we do the wellness activities and we go B2C, we actually collect the data that will support that. I think that's something that some companies miss, and sometimes it's because of the money, but talking to the FDA doesn't cost anything. So it's something worthwhile to do. Thank you.
Cool. And I didn't ask it before, and now it's audience time, but it's really, I think, I learned it from you, Dasi, that it's really a decision that an Israeli company needs to make pretty early. It's like a fork in the road of how fast they go into the US market. Usually it's the US market in terms of, kind of moving from the smaller test bed here to try to be more international, right? And your recommendation was basically do it early. That's what I heard from you.
So, well, I have my opinions, which are based on certain experiences, whether good or bad. I would like to say that there's a balance, right? Because like Adi said, and as we all know, the Israeli healthcare system is very digitalized. So supposedly it's supposed to be easier to start here. I think it's super important to remember that the ecosystem here is totally different than the US. The reimbursement is different. The patient journey is different. The business models are different. So we need to think whether it would be worthwhile to start here or not. It's always a debate. I guess at the end it depends on again the analysis that we need to do. We need to understand where we're going long term, and then build all the way to that, and see whether the Israeli data would actually support our commercial model.
Okay, thank you. Good advice. Tanya is not letting us neglect COVID. She wants to discuss COVID. She wants to see if any one of you saw gaming initiatives that are about the pandemic, but more specifically vaccination motivation. For those of you who believe in it, right? No.
I would say that I saw something which was not very formative, but people got, when vaccines in Israel were open to all population, there were the skeptic ones and there were the waiters, I would say. And then it opened from the age of 16 and above. And then just in my city, I saw a small game that I thought about, and kids play together as a contest. Who would have the green pass and would be able to go to the Pesach trip. There's a holiday here soon. And it became a bit viral through the city, and the government, like the money, well, the word jumped from my head, but the municipal, the municipal management here published it, and the kids, the percent of kids that got vaccinated was higher after the publishing. So
right, great. I see a question. I know that Noah, you answered it in the chat, but maybe we'll expand on it, because there are pros in the audience, but there are probably aspiring game creators as well. And one question was, what is the entry point? Does it need to be about programming or coding, or it's a wider net from that? So would love to hear from you, Noah, or anyone else that wants to chat.
Well, just to clarify, when I was saying that programming is the sort of easiest way to get hired, it's not necessarily the easiest way into the industry. In particular, if you've tried programming and have absolutely no aptitude for it, then it's certainly not the easiest way. But some of the other, I'd say the main pillars of game development are, in addition to programming, which is certainly one of the important ones, but project management, design, and art all are critical. Depending on the game, you also end up with a lot of other specialties, sound and music, or even voiceovers. Voice actors are now getting into the games industry. Game testing is often an entry-level kind of position, but it's a little bit like the old classic, starting in the mailroom. It doesn't necessarily mean, sometimes people get stuck in that position, so it's not always the best way to get started. But the good thing is that the games industry has never been healthier. There is a huge demand for games of almost every type. It keeps growing, and there are a lot of new areas that are growing. Esports obviously is something that's been getting big very quickly, and there are actually something I'm completely forgetting. One of the things that I forget about, because it's this odd thing where games have become like sports, is being a Twitch streamer or an influencer, and the fact that there are now people. First time I met somebody who said, "Oh, I'm a real gamer. I love games." And I said, "Well, what games do you play?" And he looked at me a little puzzled, and he said, "Well, I don't play games. I watch them on Twitch." And my first thought was, well, that's insane. That's not being a gamer. And then I realized if somebody came to me and said, "I love baseball. I am just a huge baseball enthusiast," I would immediately assume that they meant that they like to watch it on television rather than that they played it all the time. And I think the games industry is moving that way. So also some of the jobs are moving into that aspect of games as a sport.
Yeah, I also want to mention quickly education. So I don't know if Vered or anyone from Shankar is online now. By the way, it's pretty late in Israel, but I'm teaching with Vered in the program that she founded. It's a master's degree, and it does focus on social innovation in gaming. So that's in Israel. I have to admit that I'm not an expert on the Israeli local map besides Shankar, but I know that there are super interesting schools in the US also. And I think that you will find in places like USC or Carnegie Mellon. I studied in Carnegie Mellon in the ETC. You will find actually a very strong focus on, social innovation and social impact and places that push the boundaries beyond entertainment. So talking about a path to employment, there are schools that if you come out with a degree, you have a strong chance. And sometimes even during school, you will have those West Coast American companies coming in and checking on the students and giving internships and other opportunities. Dasi, you thought maybe we'll open it also. I mean, we have kind of 10 minutes, I think. Open the mic for people that want to ask more in a verbal form.
Yes, I got a few notes. I don't know if the specific people who wrote to me are still here because
if they went to sleep or
rather late in Israel. But yeah, I think we can open the mics and just have people ask questions and have sort of a more open discussion. If anyone wants to. Or not.
Hi, can I ask something?
Of course.
Hi, thank you everybody. Really, this is great session and really educated, and we need to start talking about it. My question would be,
can you Tanya introduce yourself, how you're connected to this?
Oh, I have got the invitation just today about this session from Dorit Schweika. She's a teacher, lecturer, and she's I know her from LinkedIn. We just LinkedIn via another session in another group about she was talking about COVID and I'm learning now my second degree and about digital transformation and marketing, and we have a gaming course in which we have to take different fields to see how we can merge it with gaming. Cool. So we took this. We have in a group. Nora, she's here also in this session. She's working in Clalit, and we took this topic because it's really important, and we started to think how we can do this, and we want to give this work after this academic work to appropriate health care institutions, so they will implement it. So it's not just theoretical work.
Yeah.
But my second question is like a mother. I'm now in the motherhood, like we say in Hebrew. I have two kids, and the last year was just a disaster for them. My little kid.
In terms of school, you mean?
Yeah. Zoom and the way teachers teach, and the lack of capabilities in education schools to do this. It was like hell. My kids were in depression, and they just couldn't learn like this, and it was really hard. And I think we have to start think about this seriously, because we know that the system is really old school, and now the gap is it gets worse. And kids are lost. The last year was lost year, and we have to think about it, because this is our future, and we have to think about creative ways. Like Daisy said, we have to be creative.
Yeah, look, I have to admit that I live in New York and I have two daughters, and I have to admit that my experience in the US was a bit different than what I'm reading in the Israeli newspapers on the parents' resistance and dissatisfaction, and but would love to hear the panel members if you want to chime on this, on maybe somehow tied to health as well, but you know, maybe how COVID changed the way we do school, but also what we can learn from it for the future when things are going to hopefully get back to normal.
I can speak anecdotally, Asi. I have two. My boys are 14 and 11, and they've had their best educational years ever, predominantly because we did something called unschooling. So my 14-year-old was very interested in mechanics, and he wanted to learn about cars. Yeah. And so we got into the racing games. And from there, I was able to jump into some of the online learning platforms. One known as Coursera, and we were able to get him signed up for an intro to mechanics course, and then negotiated with the school so that he could earn his credit as a middle schooler, sort of learning mechanics in this sort of accelerated way through sort of the science and technology. So again, it requires really that cooperation and communication, really building the curriculum and saying, this is what you know they want to learn. Here's how we're going to measure their learning. And now let's get out of their way and watch what they do with the technology.
Yeah. I had a similar experience, by the way, in the summer. So basically, instead of a summer camp, there was, which, you know, it was right after the pandemic started. It was very hard to think about the summer camp in the traditional sense. And I felt like I became a curator, you know, every week. I gave them an option, I gave them a menu, and they chose. It was super easy to register, was super easy to participate. They like it, they don't like it, they move to something else. So there are also advantages, but to your point, it's effort also from us and demands much more than from us to be taking a more active role in the curation and making sure that, and not only complain, but also find solutions.
Yeah, I agree with you, but there are many children without the parents or without this support,
sure.
And this is the...
Or even connection, right? Or even robust connection.
Yeah, and there are a lot of this. We have to think about them also.
Yeah, for sure.
And we have to give them digital capabilities, because maybe they don't have even a computer at home, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I see we sort of have to close soon. I mean, I know we can stay like GameIS usually do.
No, I'm honestly very sensitive to the whole thing that we're getting into the nighttime, and
I would just like to give one last point of view of Games for Health from someone who does something different that is not about behavior, which we talked about a lot. And it's a good friend of mine that I met, I think, just a few years ago in an airport in Germany or China. Where was it? I don't know. We met in the NBA in London. Matar, do you want to just share a bit so we have another view, and then?
All right. Thank you, Dazi, and thank you for the panelists. It was very interesting, actually. I work for a company that does simulation in healthcare, and we provide actual simulators. Think of them as simulators for physicians, so they can learn. And obviously, we've been in the business now for 20 years. And maybe one thing I can share with you is, and that probably touches a little bit where I think Dazi was talking about earlier, is like, where do you start? Would you go to having this as a fully validated, reimbursed product or not? I can share with you 20 years ago when I started with this company, Mentis is a Swedish company, the talk was about mandate for training being around the corner. And actually they are still there. They are still around the corner. And we have not seen a single medical society actually adopt that. Despite that, interestingly, there is actually a pretty good market out there for us working with a device industry and working with hospitals directly. And it's not hundreds of millions yet, but it's a good business. The company today is 100 people. We've been, as I said, in existence for 20 years. And, we have more than 50 interventional procedures, from neuro coiling and clot extraction during stroke to cardiac ablation and stenting and valve repair, etc. And this goes all the way as well to what Ari said earlier, doing actually individual procedures, so patient individual procedures. They are not classical games per se, but obviously they're very close. And if one word of encouragement I could give everyone is like, don't start with trying to make this a fully blown medical product. Start with smaller pieces. And I really like the cognitive piece of it. And I learned something today, that the ADHD treatment is now possible through a gaming app.
Yeah.
So very, very interesting. And yeah.
Thank you, Matteo, for sharing.
I didn't contribute, but very interesting talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I want to thank also again the panelists, John, Eitan, Adi, Noah. Was a pleasure talking with you. I hope the audience enjoyed it as much as I did. Dasi, any concluding comments? Or Guy on IS side?
It's a pleasure to be here. Asi, I think you did a great moderating job, so kudos to you as well. And really appreciate the great turnout and a not terribly comfortable hour in the day.
Yeah.
And I hope we've been helpful, and let's hope that this is the first of many to come.
For
sure. So I'm gonna shut down the recording now, but everyone who wants to stay, ask question and experience some conversation can stay around and have fun.
Thank you.
Thank you. So everyone, as long as our panel